She didn't go there to fall in love. She went to forget. A glass of cheap wine, a room full of overconfident men, and a pit of exhaustion she could barely hide. But fate doesn't always knock. Sometimes it slips in quietly, wearing second-hand shoes and desperation in its eyes. Sarah Thompson hated networking events. Not because she wasn't good at them. She was painfully so. People liked her. Investors respected her. Young founders whispered her name in breakout rooms. But small talk exhausted her. And tonight, after back-to-back 16-hour coding days, her soul felt like someone had scraped it with a spatula. Still, she came, because the startup world didn't pause for burnout, and because a mentor had told her once, your next break might be hiding behind a boring buffet. She didn't expect Daniel. He wasn't polished. His shirt had a coffee stain. His shoes looked like they'd walked through things she didn't want to imagine, but his eyes were different, intelligent, quiet, tired. "Are you Sarah?" he asked, not sheepishly, but earnestly, as if the answer mattered more than he could admit. She blinked. "That depends. Are you hiring me or firing me?" He chuckled, a low, warm sound. "Neither. I just want to say your work on FinCode security layers? Genius." It was the first real thing anyone had said to her that evening. For the next 10 minutes, she forgot the bad lighting and tasteless finger food. Daniel Okoro wasn't there to pitch. He was there to stay afloat, and she was about to give him more than a lifeline. She was about to offer him a future. No diamond ring, no wedding cake, no crying parents or joyful toasts. Just a courthouse, 2 signatures, and a quiet understanding between 2 strangers playing fate's strange game. But even arrangements written in ink can bleed into something real when hearts beat too close. Sarah woke up the morning of the wedding with a pit in her stomach and an email from an investor in her inbox. "Still interested in your platform. Need to see projections by Monday." It was Friday. She turned over, glancing at the corner of the room where Daniel's suitcase sat untouched. He had stayed over the night before, not in her bed, but in her guest room. They'd spent hours going over legal paperwork, filing the last immigration documents, and practicing their answers for the immigration officer. It was all business. But that didn't stop her from noticing how tired he looked when he thought she wasn't watching, or how his fingers trembled slightly when he signed the pre-marriage affidavits. They arrived at the Travis County Courthouse just before noon. Sarah wore jeans and a gray blouse. Daniel wore the same black blazer he wore to every interview. "Last chance to run," she whispered with a smile as they stepped into the clerk's office. He looked at her, grateful. "I've been running my whole life. I think I'm done now." The ceremony was quick. The clerk had a warm voice and took a photo of them that would later become oddly precious. There was no kiss, just a hug and a shared breath when the clerk said, "You're now legally married." Outside, the sun was sharp and unromantic. "Lunch?" Sarah asked. "Best honeymoon I can afford," Daniel replied with a smirk. They laughed for the first time in days. That afternoon, they signed a basic cohabitation agreement and set ground rules. Daniel would move into the guest room. They continued working on Code Haven, now more as partners than boss and employee. Sarah wasn't naive. She knew this could backfire. But there was something about Daniel that made her want to believe in second chances. For both of them. And for a while, things got better. They developed a rhythm. Mornings were for coding, afternoons for client meetings. Evenings sometimes included cheap tacos and brainstorming over wine. Daniel was brilliant with system architecture. He saw things she didn't. He challenged her, respected her pace, and always gave credit where it was due. 2 months after the wedding, they were fixing bugs at midnight when Sarah leaned back in her chair and sighed. "I hate this part." "What part?" he asked. "The endless fixing. Feels like my whole life is a debug loop." Daniel looked at her, Serious now. You build systems. You fix what's broken. That's your power. Don't hate it. It wasn't romantic, but it felt real. And something shifted. That night, when she went to bed, she hesitated outside his door before walking away. By the 4th month, they were in sync, too in sync. They shared inside jokes, went grocery shopping like a real couple, attended tech meetups, and introduced each other as my partner. People assumed they were in love. Neither corrected them. But love is a tricky thing when it's born from paperwork. Their immigration interview came quickly. They dressed formally, arrived early, and held hands just long enough to pass for genuine affection. "Do you live together?" the officer asked. "Yes." "How did you meet?" "Networking event," Daniel said. Sarah smiled. "What's her favorite food?" Daniel didn't hesitate. "Pad Thai, extra peanuts." "No, tofu." Sarah raised an eyebrow. He wasn't wrong. The officer nodded. They passed. After that, something between them cracked open. Maybe it was the relief. Maybe it was the closeness. Maybe it was just time. One night, after a product launch at 20,000 downloads in 24 hours, they opened champagne. Daniel leaned against the kitchen counter, laughing. "I thought you'd be impossible to live with," he said. "I thought you'd be gone by now," she replied. He walked toward her, paused, then kissed her. Just once. Not rushed, not dramatic. And in that kiss was a promise they hadn't made in court. Sarah knew she was in trouble, because this wasn't just an arrangement anymore. And feelings, they never obeyed contracts. She sat in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, whispering to herself, "Please don't make me regret this." Trust doesn't shatter like glass. It thins like thread, stretching, fraying, snapping silent in the dark when no one's looking. And sometimes it takes falling in love to realize how fragile you become. 3 months after their kiss, Sarah found herself wondering if she was dreaming through her days. They weren't just pretending anymore. They were sharing a home, a business, a rhythm. She woke up to the smell of his coffee. He brought her leftover dumplings at midnight. Their friends, what few they had, started referring to them as a couple. Daniel never asked to move into her room. It just happened. One night, she fell asleep in his bed after a movie. The next, he brought over his pillow. Eventually, they stopped counting. They landed a huge contract with a fintech company in New York. Sarah insisted on handling the pitch solo, but at the celebratory dinner, she let Daniel give the toast. "To good code, honest work, and the woman who made this happen," he said, lifting his glass. Her chest fluttered, not from the champagne, from the way he looked at her. Afterward, in the cab back home, he kissed her hand, not playfully, reverently. She leaned on his shoulder, pretending not to notice the way her heart flipped. But small things began to shift. He started taking more client calls alone, claimed it saved time. Then he changed his calendar password. She asked, half joking, "Keeping secrets?" He kissed her cheek, "Only the good kind." She laughed, but a voice in her gut began whispering. One Friday night, while looking for tax receipts on her share drive, Sarah found a folder labeled Org Restructure. Inside were draft legal docs, memos, board voting records. Her name had been altered, subtly, from co-founder to lead developer. Confused, she scrolled through more files. The documents were marked preliminary, legal review only. But Daniel hadn't mentioned anything about restructuring. She confronted him gently that night. "Why am I not listed as co-founder in these files?" Daniel glanced at the screen. "Oh, that's just a draft. The lawyer we're using prefers to format things that way. You're still 50-50, don't worry." "Then why haven't I seen these before?" "You've been so busy coding. I didn't want to overwhelm you with admin stuff." She wanted to believe him. But that night, She copied the files onto a flash drive and hid it in her jewelry box. That weekend, he flew to San Francisco for a partner meeting. He didn't tell her the address, didn't offer a flight itinerary, said he'd be back Sunday night. He came back Monday. No apology, just a gift, a fancy mechanical keyboard she once admired. Still, something in her had cooled. He slept beside her that night, but she stared at the ceiling, her back turned. Something's wrong, she thought, and it's already begun. Maya, her best friend from college and now an attorney, stopped by for coffee later that week. "You trust this guy?" Maya asked, watching Daniel leave with a duffel bag. Sarah hesitated. "I want to." That's not an answer. Sarah exhaled. It started out fake. Now it's real, but sometimes I can't tell where the line is. Maya looked at her, dead serious. "Get a paper trail, and don't wait to find out the hard way." That night, Sarah did something she never thought she would. She logged into the admin dashboard for the company's cloud storage and set up a silent alert. Anytime legal documents were uploaded or changed, she'd get a private ping. Trust is a beautiful thing, but even the best trust needs a backup plan. Betrayal doesn't announce itself with thunder. It whispers, slow, soft, and convincing, until the day it screams through the silence you try to protect. The pings started coming. At first, they were minor. A document title edited, a new folder created. Then more serious things appeared. A contract draft with only Daniel's name. A presentation pitch with CEO Daniel O. front and center. Sarah kept quiet, watching, waiting. She didn't want to believe what she was seeing. But when trust starts to crumble, everything looks like a lie. One afternoon, they attended a panel on women in tech. Sarah had been invited to speak, but was asked to yield the mic to the lead founder of Codehaven. The organizer smiled politely and said, "Daniel mentioned he'd take the lead. You're still welcome to assist." Assist? Sarah's heart cracked, but she smiled. She sat through the entire panel, hands folded, lips sealed. Daniel spoke eloquently about his vision and the team and our early struggles. He never once said her name. That night, she didn't come home. She went to Maya's apartment. "I need help," she said simply. Maya didn't ask questions. She pulled out wine and her laptop. By midnight, they had combed through more than 20 files Daniel had quietly shared with a corporate lawyer in California. Each one shifted company control further into his hands. His new title? CEO and sole shareholder. Sarah didn't wait long. The next day, she placed a flash drive on the kitchen table. "What's this?" Daniel asked casually. "Proof," she said, "of what you're doing, of who you've become." He stared at her. "You went through my files?" "They were our files." His tone changed. "You've always been paranoid. You don't understand business scaling." "I understand theft when I see it." Silence. He picked up the drive and dropped it in his pocket. "Maybe we need some space." She nodded. "You should take it, and everything that comes with it." He walked out. Over the next week, Maya helped Sarah file an emergency injunction. It was risky. They had to prove Daniel had used forged digital signatures and manipulated shared documents. Sarah gave statements, shared emails, screenshots, voice memos, but lawsuits move slowly, and betrayal moves fast. Then it happened. Sarah logged into Codehaven's finance dashboard. All access revoked. She checked the company's Stripe and PayPal accounts. Closed, moved, cleared. Daniel had drained them all. And just like that, everything she built was gone. She sat on her kitchen floor. Hours passed. Her phone buzzed, but she ignored it. When Maya arrived, Sarah simply whispered, "Tell me what to do." Maya replied, "We burn him with truth, and then we build you a new empire." Some people crawl away from disaster. Others rise straight through the fire. Sarah had been erased from her own story, but now she would rewrite every single page. The morning after Daniel left, Sarah woke up on Maya's couch, wrapped in a blanket that smelled like lavender and peppermint. Her eyes were swollen, but her spine felt straighter. "I can't stay here forever," she whispered. Maya walked in, handing her a mug of black coffee. "You're not meant to stay. You're meant to rebuild." That afternoon, Sarah and Maya sat cross-legged on the floor, mapping ideas. They needed a new name, a fresh company, a clean break from everything Daniel had corrupted. "Phoenix Wear," Sarah said finally. Maya looked up. "Why?" "Because ashes make the best soil." They registered the domain name that evening. Sarah reached out to a former client privately, an HR platform that had loved her back-end design work. She didn't ask for a big contract. She asked for trust. The client sent a signed contract within 48 hours. Sarah cried, using a pseudonym. Sarah began documenting her story on Medium and Reddit. The blog, titlewife.exe, deleted and rebooted, went viral within a week. Each post read like a tech thriller memoir. He said he needed a visa. I gave him my name. He said we'd build something together. He built it over my bones. The internet listened. Thousands of women commented, emailed, and messaged their own stories of betrayal, loss, and rebirth. Sarah wasn't alone anymore. By the third week, Sarah had secured 3 small contracts and a DM from a women-led venture capital fund in New York. The message read, "Phoenix Wear has a heartbeat. Can we help it run?" Sarah stared at her screen, then replied with a single sentence, "Only if I keep full control." They agreed. Meanwhile, news started trickling out. Codehaven staff turnover rose. A whistleblower posted anonymously about unethical practices under Daniel's leadership. Financial records were being audited. Legal emails leaked. Sarah's blog gained even more traction. She never named him directly, but everyone knew. The day Sarah received her first official Phoenix Wear payment, just $1,200. She printed the check, framed it, and placed it on her desk. It wasn't about the money. It was proof she was back. And this time, no one was taking anything from her. Sometimes, silence is louder than betrayal. Daniel hadn't spoken Sarah's name in weeks, but her story was on everyone's lips. And soon, his name would echo for all the wrong reasons. Codehaven was burning. Behind the polished facade, the investors were panicking. Clients were pulling out. Staff were leaving in waves. Daniel did everything he could to stop the bleeding. Flashy press releases, internal team videos, even influencer shout-outs. But none of it mattered, because the truth had started whispering. And the internet doesn't whisper long. Sarah scrolled through her phone, pausing on an email subject line. "You were right." Inside was a message from a former Codehaven intern. Anonymous, terrified, they had screenshots of Daniel's forged signatures, his private Slack messages mocking investors, his instructions to silence Sarah from the back-end systems. Maya read over her shoulder. "This isn't just leverage. This is evidence." Maya connected Sarah with a female-led legal advocacy group that specialized in startup fraud. They took the case on contingency. Within a week, subpoenas were filed, depositions scheduled, investigators called. Sarah watched the wheels turn, slow but unstoppable. It was revenge she felt. It was justice catching up. A journalist from a major tech site reached out. She had pieced together the blog, the Reddit threads, and the investor fallout. She wanted an interview. Sarah agreed on one condition: no names. "I want the truth told, but I'm not here to bury anyone. I'm here to build something better." The article went live with a headline, "Startup Queen Reclaims Her Crown After Silent Betrayal." It trended for 3 days. Daniel sat alone in the Codehaven boardroom, watching the stock graph sink. His inbox was full of complaints. His calendar empty. His lawyer called. Calm but clear. "You're being sued for breach of contract, forgery, and corporate sabotage." Daniel looked out the glass window and saw the office lights flicker. He was alone now, and the empire he stole was slipping through his fingers. Sarah didn't gloat. She didn't post. She didn't tweet. She simply showed up every morning, logged into Phoenix Wear, helped her new hires, took calls, gave feedback, ate lunch at her desk, and smiled, because now every win was hers. Every line of code, every pitch, every late night. It was hers. She had nothing to prove anymore, just something to protect. A stolen empire leaves shadows behind. But Sarah had stopped walking in Daniel's. Now, she was casting her own. An email from Tech Women Global arrived one chilly Thursday morning. "We'd be honored to have you speak on resilience and leadership at our Los Angeles summit." Sarah stared at the screen. This time last year, she'd been invisible. Now, they wanted her on stage. She typed a response slowly. "I accept, but I won't be speaking as a victim. I'll be speaking as a builder." Maya helped her write it. Every sentence had weight. Not dramatic, just honest. Sarah practiced in front of the mirror. "Sometimes it takes losing everything to realize who you are when no one's watching." Depositions began. Sarah didn't need to testify in person. Her digital records were damning enough. Daniel's lawyer tried to delay. Twice, but the court moved forward. Fraud, breach, forgery. Sarah didn't gloat. She just checked the calendar and went back to coding. When Sarah walked onto stage, the room fell silent. She wore a tailored blazer over jeans. Simple, powerful. She took a breath and began. "I married a man to save his future. I gave him my trust, my company, and my name. He gave me betrayal. But this isn't about what he took. It's about what I rebuilt. Alone, brick by brick." The room exhaled. Cameras clicked. A few people wiped tears. By the end, they gave her a standing ovation. That night, Sarah walked along the beach alone. The ocean roared beside her. She thought about the girl she used to be, the one who felt unlovable, too trusting, too soft. She was still soft, but now she was still underneath. She picked up a small, smooth stone, held it to the moonlight, and whispered, "Thank you for breaking me, because I found the parts worth keeping." And she walked forward. When karma finally speaks, it doesn't shout. It whispers at the right frequency, and the whole world listens. A formal envelope landed in Sarah's mailbox. Not a lawsuit, not a fine, an invitation to testify in person against Daniel in a federal fraud case. She sat on her porch, envelope in hand, watching the sky change colors. "You ready for this?" Maya asked beside her. Sarah looked down at the letter, then straight ahead. "Let's finish what he started." The courtroom was cold. Daniel sat at the defendant's table, suit impeccable, eyes empty. Sarah took the stand, not as an accuser, but as a witness to truth. She told her story clearly, without venom. "How did you feel when you discovered he had removed you from your own company?" the attorney asked. Sarah didn't flinch, like I was erased. But I didn't stay gone. It took 3 days. Daniel was found liable for fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, and intentional deception. He lost majority control of Code Haven and faced a financial penalty that would wipe out what he had stolen. Sarah didn't smile. She simply exhaled. Justice wasn't joy. It was quiet repair. 1 week later, Code Haven's board contacted her. "Would you consider returning as CEO?" The email read, "We want to rebuild with integrity." Sarah didn't hesitate. "Thank you, but I already did that." She clicked send, then closed the tab, and got back to work on Phoenixware. At the next Phoenixware company retreat, Sarah invited Maya to co-host. They stood side by side under string lights, speaking to a small team of dreamers. "We're not just building software," Sarah said. "We're building safety. We're building futures." Applause, laughter, unity, and for the first time in a long time, Sarah felt complete. Life had taken from her. But in the wreckage, she had become everything she once gave away. Strength, love, vision, and fire. And now, she wasn't just surviving. She was leading. You never know who's listening until your story becomes their survival. Sarah opened her inbox and paused. Subject: Your story saved my life. The message came from a woman in Ohio, mid-40s, mother of 3, trapped in a controlling marriage. She had stumbled across wife.exe at 2 a.m. "I thought I was alone," she wrote. "Then I read about you." Sarah sat in silence, tears filling her eyes, not from pain, from purpose. Sarah created a small grant inside Phoenixware, dedicated to helping women rebuild their careers after betrayal, loss, or trauma. She named it the Phoenix Fund. At the company's next board meeting, she stood before her team and said, "We don't just write code, we write comebacks." Inspired by Sarah's journey, Maya was invited to speak at a legal conference on female advocacy and corporate protection. "You're not just my friend," Sarah said. "You're the armor I didn't know I needed." Maya smiled. "And now you're the fire they can't put out." At a tech expo in San Francisco, Sarah spotted a familiar face. Daniel. He was at a modest booth, demoing for a small startup. He looked older, thinner, quieter. They locked eyes. He gave a nod. No pride, no anger, just recognition. She nodded back, then turned away, because she had nothing to prove. 1 year after launching Wife.exe, Sarah wrote her final post. "Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means reclaiming." This blog began with heartbreak, but it ends with hope. If you're reading this and your world has shattered, don't rush to rebuild. Just rise, one shard at a time. She hit publish, closed the tab, and exhaled. Redemption doesn't erase the past, but sometimes it helps you close the door gently. 2 years had passed since the trial. Sarah was in New York for a Phoenixware roundtable when she got a call from reception. "There's someone here who says he won't take more than 5 minutes. Says he just wants to speak with you. His name is Daniel." Sarah's heart didn't race. It didn't ache. It simply stayed steady. She met him in the building's garden lounge. He stood with his hands in his coat pockets. Thinner, humbler. "Thank you for seeing me," he said. She nodded, said nothing. "I came to say I'm sorry for everything. I thought I had to take what I wanted. I didn't see what I already had." She looked at him for a long moment. "I forgave you a long time ago," she said. "But forgiveness doesn't mean we forget who people were, or who we became because of them." He nodded, eyes glassy. "You were always a better builder." She nodded and left. 6 months later, Sarah was invited to a philanthropy tech summit in Napa Valley. The keynote speaker was Ethan Blake, a former Wall Street investor turned social tech entrepreneur. He was tall, warm-eyed, effortlessly charismatic, and completely uninterested in her wealth. He approached her after the panel. "You don't just speak," he said. "You ignite." They had dinner that evening, then lunch the next day, then conversations that never felt like interviews. They talked about failure, healing, the joy of second chances. Ethan never asked how much she made. He asked what made her laugh. He never praised her titles. He praised her integrity. And he never needed her light. He simply reflected it back. They were married in a quiet garden ceremony under the redwoods a year later. No headlines, no sponsors, just love. Phoenixware grew. So did the Phoenix Fund. Sarah and Ethan launched a joint project funding startup ideas from formerly incarcerated women. They traveled, mentored, and spent long weekends in quiet places reading books and planting vegetables. Years later, someone asked Sarah in an interview, "What's your greatest accomplishment?" She smiled. "Peace, the kind that took pain to earn." And so, the woman who was once erased wrote her own story, not with anger, not with revenge, but with healing, love, and fire that never burned out. Thanks for watching this episode of Real Story Twist. If this story moved you, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps us keep telling the stories that matter. And if you've ever rebuilt your life after betrayal or loss, share your truth in the comments. You're not alone, and your story deserves to be heard. Until next time, stay bold, stay kind, and never forget, you are not what broke you. You are what you chose to build next.
She wore her heart like a shield. When trust fell apart, dreams were revealed. From the ashes she started to rise, with fire in her heart and hope in her eyes. This is her story, a tale of grace. In every ending, a new path to embrace. She wore her heart heart like a shield when trust fell apart.